All right, hello and
Hi.
welcome. Hi there. So we've got Pam Dorsey with us today, and I wanted to give you just a little bit of background on Pam. Pam is a a great example of a woman who has remained soft, sensitive, and strong through a great amount of loss in her life. And she's she's gone through the loss of really good friends, parents, and even her son. And I have to tell you before we start our conversation today, Pam is is here with us today, but I want to let you know that another one of her friends has passed this morning. And so if you feel or sense a little bit of sadness, that you're tuned in to what's happening today, because she did pass, and I'll let Pam speak to that. But I do appreciate you, Pam, for being willing to share your story and being real with exactly what's happening. This is part of life, and still being willing to show up with us today and talk about this topic of shifting yourself to first.
Sure.
So Pam, the first question I've got for you is, why do you do what you do? Like, what do you think motivates you in life?
Um, that's not a black and white answer. Um, like you said, my life has been very rough. Someone consider a very rough road. Um, I started gaining awareness of everything in my life, good and bad, and either it started showing itself or I chose to see it. I'm not sure which happened first because I was so uncomfortable where I was.
Mm,
Um, and I have a thirst for living and joyfulness now, so some shift happened. I think I
mm,
just got tired of being someone that I wasn't meant to be, and I missed that person, and it came forth and showed itself. That I'm guessing, but that's what I think
sure,
happened.
sure. So I'm curious. That shift that came, was that an event in your life, or was that what was it that was like the catalyst that brought you to that place?
Funny you should ask, because I'm convinced that it was a process and not an event.
Mm,
There may have been a main event that why I started going into the dark world instead of staying myself and in the light. My
mm-hmm,
dad died when I was 15, and I felt very abandoned. Is that
mm-hmm,
what did it? I'm not sure. I think a series of losses, drama, chaos, abuse. I had an abusive marriage. I think
mm,
all those things combined. Um, it was kind of a life or death situation, at least emotionally and spiritually. I was
mm.
suicidal a couple times in my life, but I think it's the emotional and spiritual death that I was recognizing and wanted something different.
Wow,
Did I answer
wow.
your question? I think
I,
I got
I,
off.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I think the point was, it was like you said, it wasn't a specific event. You had a lot of things going on, and it was a process of uh, pieces. And I may not be using the right words here, but it sounds like pieces of you that were kind of dying off, and maybe that kind of caused a rise up for life in you, or
Yeah,
a
kind of awakening. I call it a spiritual awakening. It's something woke
awakening.
me up, and I don't know if I woke myself up or this process and this string of events woke me up. I don't know
Mm-hmm.
which.
Ah, ah. But the awakening part is really what you're attributing.
Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. So talk more about that. What? you talked a little bit about the events, but what is the awakening feeling like? What's that feel like to feel
Oh,
awakened?
yeah, that is a good question. It's glimpses, and I mean glimpses at first. For me, it was just glimpses of hope, glimpses of joy, glimpses of life walking on the high road, which, I mean, I try to stay on the high road. I can't say I don't get angry at a driver on the highway sometimes or something, but it was little glimpses of a better way, a better
Mm,
me,
mm,
and gaining the me I lost. Just little glimpses of it. And then I started paying more attention to those glimpses.
mm.
Being aware, I think being aware was my first step. Not choosing not to ignore what I was trying to tell myself, if that makes
Mm-hmm.
sense.
Sure.
So I started listening and seeing for myself and feeling the difference and how I treated others and how others treated me. I think we set the precedents in our life how others should treat us.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And for years, I allowed abuse and insanity in my life. Yeah, and I grew very weary of that type of life.
Yeah, I think you said something really important about uh, the awareness, and then you also it was can't remember your words, but it was something to the effect of like staying awake and with what was happening,
Staying
maybe
aware.
instead of going numb or instead of but you actually were willing to be with the discomfort or the whatever was going on, you're willing to be with it.
Exactly.
And how do you how did you do that? What helped you? I know the glimpses helped you kind of keep going, but when you were in that place of like being with it, like what helped you be with it?
Okay, and well, there was a couple things. I knew years ago that I didn't really have strong faith in anything. I had no higher power
Mm.
in my life. So I picked a cardinal bush outside my kitchen window that was always, I called it the cardinal bush because it was always full of red flowers and cardinals. And that was my higher power for a couple of years. Um,
Mm.
I'd kind of meditate on it, stare at it, get comfort from it. That was the closest I could get to an actual loving, kind, understanding higher power. And then we moved, and I lost my bush. So then I picked the constellation Orion up in the sky.
Mm.
And when I was feeling insane and the anxiety and the panic levels were high, I would wait for evening and go out, and Orion was always in the same spot and strong, and I love
Mm.
stars anyway. So then
Mm-hmm.
Orion was my higher power for a while. I chose to join an Al-Anon group. It's Al-Anon is for people that are affected by alcoholics or drug addicts that have, it really affected their lives, and that's where we go to heal ourselves. And I joined an Al-Anon group, which is a spiritual group. It's not religious, but it's spiritual. So I got a lot of tools from the 12 steps, the Serenity Prayer,
Mm.
and kind of grounded me. My meetings grounded me. Um, and then I started seeking more spiritual awareness through meditation. I'm a big fan of incense and candles and soothing music.
Mm.
And continued to, one thing that was really difficult but that helped me, and it is one of the 12 steps, is I took a moral and fearless inventory of myself.
Ooh. Okay, now tell us about that. Tell it for people who
Oh,
aren't familiar with Al-Anon and the 12 steps.
yeah, okay. So, through life we develop these tools of survival and manipulation.
Mm-hmm.
And us women are notorious for using tears for manipulation or anger for manipulation. And for myself, I got caught up in all that, and I allowed my defects of character to just run rampant. Whatever, who cares, you know? And so when I did a fearless and moral searching inventory of myself, to do it honestly, I had to look at all those behaviors and my reactions to things that weren't serving my highest self at all. It was making my life pretty miserable. So you write them all down and take a good look at them, and after that you're just aware every day, and you can stop yourself when you start reacting in a bad way, or not walking on that high road, and say, okay, this is one of my defects and this is what I'd like to change. And so I started with an awareness of my own behavior.
I see. As you said,
And
that
it's
process
very
then,
interesting. Huh?
So just quick, so that process then kind of heightens your awareness. It
Well,
really
yeah.
brings it to, okay.
It leads to a spiritual awakening, because that's just one of the steps. Another step, and I don't mean to turn this into a 12-step interview, but this is what helped me. And it works in anything. You don't have to have an alcoholic or a drug addict. You can apply these 12 steps to anything. You also make direct amends to anyone that you've harmed, as long as it doesn't hurt them or yourself, to make that amends. And I made some amends, and that kind of was a freeing experience. So and then helping others too, because you're helping those newcomers that come in that meeting that are just hopeless and helpless, and in that way you can share your experience and give them hope. And that all of those things lead to a spiritual awakening. So I know that had a big nudge on me about it. And the death of my son, boy, it was either be a depressed mess for the rest of my life, maybe even take my own life, or choose that other path. And at that point, I am very grateful to myself that I chose the other path. And then having good support group of friends who I chose to hang around with years ago were, some bad choices, brought a lot of drama and chaos and took up a lot of my time and energy. So support groups, meditation, working on my spiritual health is huge. My physical health, I try to walk 3 miles a day. Sometimes it's 4 a week. And yeah, just try to take good care of myself.
So
all those things.
That's amazing. That sounds like that's so much. And the question I want to ask you right there is why do you think this topic of women taking really excellent care of themselves is so important?
Oh boy, that's a huge question, Christy. That is.
I know.
That's a big picture. Well, first let me say that let's talk about denial really quick. So denial, the state of denial, when you're denying things, is a spiritual shock absorber. So in that way, it's a wonderful tool, but unfortunately, it's not a helpful tool when you're trying to shift yourself into a better life. I know so many women stay in denial. I did, because we beat ourselves down where we feel like we have no strength to be courageous. And so it takes courage to change. It takes courage to change, but when you're so beaten down, whether it be by another person or circumstances or an illness, whatever, you would lose your personal power. When you lose your personal power, your bucket drains empty, because you can't have an intimate relationship with yourself. You've got to keep that bucket full. When your bucket's empty, you're no good to anyone, including yourself. So I think it's really important that women know that full buckets are pretty easy to come by if they'll just get out of their own way.
Oh, okay. So that's awesome right there. So they're pretty easy to come by. So why do you say that? And maybe you could give us a couple of things that you use to feel yourself.
Okay, you know, it's the simplest. The answers are the simplest. You know, I live by some slogans. One is keep it simple. And that sounds so simple, like, oh yeah, sure, keep it simple. You keep it simple. I can hear people saying, you keep it simple. You don't live with my husband, or you don't have my kids. You know, I can hear that. But the truth is, to keep it simple is a life-saving tool. Another one is Easy Does It. And I like to name the month August, Easy Does It August. And all month I make sure I'm aware of Easy Does It in August. I just picked that. You can pick any month. You can pick any moment. Easy Does It. Are you beating yourself up? Are you punishing others because you're mad and you're not directing that anger at the right place? You know, are you hungry, angry, lonely, or tired? There's a short word for that. It's called HUG. Don't allow yourself to get hungry, angry, lonely, tired, or do something about that if you find that. So those are a couple of the tools. Meditation is a tool. I'm not the best at it, but I work on it. I like to do a little candle lighting, get some me time, put my feet on the ground and try to, focus and just be still as long as I can. Sometimes it's 15 seconds, sometimes it's 5 minutes. It's a tool. So I guess the answer to what I'm trying to say is I utilize tools that I've learned that help me be my best self instead of my worst self. And I'm working on manipulation and all those kind of bad tools. I'm still working on them to rid them goodbye.
Yeah, and I think this is such a like you said at the beginning of this question, it's such a large topic. Like we have the whole culture, this rushing against us with the self-sacrifice, and so we're kind of splitting upstream a bit with this topic and with what you're doing. So it's almost like it's this lifelong process of refining and learning new tools and seeing what works and some things do and some things don't. And I loved what you said about HALT, hungry, angry, lonely, tired. It reminds me of when I had my kids, babies. Are they hungry? Do they need a diaper change? It's kind of like a self-inventory, like that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I think keep it simple. Like I have little notes posted everywhere. Keep it simple is very important. And it's the simplest thing you're thinking, oh, like I said earlier, but you wouldn't believe how powerful that slogan can be in your life at the right time.
Yeah. I think back on when I became a single parent and I had 2 small kids and I was pregnant and then had my youngest, and if I simplified everything, I mean it was 1 towel per child. It was like 7 outfits. It was just everything that was excess had to go, because if it was going to be, it couldn't be complicated. Like life itself was complicated, so everything else had to become simple to support it. So
exactly.
That one, I grabbed hold of that one, and I really see what you're saying with that. I'm going to check in here with some of my questions. Okay, so here's a question. So, what concerns or fears did you have in doing this work? Like in deciding to make decisions that were good for you, that might not be, that people around you might not have been happy about, that you were doing things that were good for you. What fears did you have around that, or hesitation?
Well, that I might be letting someone down, because my MO was make sure that everyone was happy, everyone had what they needed before myself. And so you kind of rock the boat when you start, you can call it selfish. It is selfish, but not in a bad way. And I was afraid that people might be mad at me if I changed. I might lose some friendships because, so another slogan that I live by is live and let live. I learned to quit trying to control what others do or say. And I got a real good lesson in that. My girlfriend and I would go shopping every Saturday. And I called her one Saturday and I said, well, you want to go shopping today? And she said, no. I said, okay. Are you sure? Yeah, I'm sure. I said, okay. Oh, I obsessed over that. What did she mean? What did I do? Was she mad at me? Should I call her? Should I drive over there? What should I do? And I called her later that evening and I said, are you mad at me? And she said, no, why? And I said, because you didn't want to go shopping. And she said, I just didn't want to go shopping. And I thought, well, I spent all day obsessing, and then, when others aren't doing what you think they should be doing in your best judgment or in your eyes, or you're not getting what you want from others, I learned how to detach. And that detachment can feel like rejection to some people. So, I guess my main fears were I never want to hurt others. But, sometimes the word codependency pops up. And if anybody's familiar with that, the old codependent, I was a flaming codependent. So, and what if I didn't like who I really was? I'd been in this dark cave and drama and trauma and on the pity pot for so many years that what if I didn't have the courage to be the person I was supposed to be? That was a fear too.
Wow. Wow. So where do you think you found the courage?
Yeah, within, definitely within, with some motivators. So when I started waking up spiritually, I realized that what I had was no good unless I shared it. So that was a motivator. I wanted to share my experience, strength, and hope, because I would never want to be where I was, even 10, 15 years ago. I never want to be there again, and I don't want other women to be there when they don't have to be. That's a motivator. Loving life and the joyousness that life brings, that's a motivator. And just being able to love myself and like myself and play, learning how to play again. I had forgotten how to play and didn't allow myself to play, and then felt guilty if I did play. So those are all big motivators.
Wow. Wow. So what's better about your life now? I know you've been through a lot. What's better?
Everything. It's that simple. Everything.
Really, everything.
Everything.
So if you could go back again and do it again, you even though it sounds like this took a lot of work and awareness and trial and error and disappointment, you'd still do it?
Yeah, but I'd try to start a little earlier in my life.
Yeah. So, okay, so looking back, what do you think it cost you to put everybody else first for so many years? What do you think the cost of that was?
Oh, my son may be alive today, may not, but he may be alive today because I really wasn't myself as I tried to guide him through his teen years. If I could have been who I am today, he might have had more hope in his life. So, I know a lot of that is guilt and, stuff I'm still working on in my personal inventory. But, that's a question I have. Would he still be alive had I been, if my bucket was full? I would have had much more drops to share with him. Another great cost was I dumped all my woes on my mother. She was my sounding board. She was my power in my corner. And I should have been helping her enjoy her last years instead of dumping my woes in her lap. I really regret that. I gained 70 pounds. I ate trays of rice puddings, trays and trays of rice pudding. So now, although I've lost the weight, when I started taking care of myself, I made sure I lost that weight. It took me years, but I've done it. But, you know, things are sagging a little more than if they wouldn't have, if I wouldn't have gained that extra weight and stretched my skin. And, yeah, I think those are some costs.
Yeah, it's interesting that the costs, a lot of the costs don't relate to you. It relates to other people. Like, you know, we think that it's selfish to put ourselves first, but, you know, it's our presence matters. And if we can be fully present with people, that's like the ultimate gift, I think, is, you know, really being there with another person. And so it's ironic that the cost of not putting yourself first is kind of like your ability to contribute and enhance other people's lives.
Definitely.
And in your own too. Yeah.
And what?
Yeah. So, say that again.
What you said about not really being there with someone. You know, have you ever been in a room full of people and you felt lonely, or you went to hang out with a group of people and you felt alone anyway? And you know, so I also had to learn to take my mask off. Everything's not always fine.
That's great. That's great. Say more about that process.
Yeah, and you know, a lot of people, you have to be willing to accept the reactions of others when you shoot straight from the hip. But if you don't, it wastes time and energy. So I like to just put out on the table what I want to say and how I feel. And wherever it falls or the reactions of others is none of my business. I mean, you know, you use tact, and I'm never rude, but I say what I mean, and I mean what I say. And I think that's comforting to a lot of people because they know where they stand with you at all times. So the people that are ready to hear me and just be with me in a real sense, they hang out. And the people that aren't move on, and that's okay too.
It reminds me of what you said earlier about the live and let live.
Live and let live.
Let life be. You be you, and just let everybody else be who they are.
Exactly.
Sounds simple.
It is simple. We make it difficult. It's very simple, but yeah, we like to complicate things sometimes, and that's not a good tool.
So I have a question here for you. So let's say there's maybe a woman who's watching or listening to this who's reluctant to make some changes and to put herself first. And so two questions about this. One is, what do you think the payoff is for her to put herself first? And what advice might you give her to help her maybe make some tiny steps? Maybe just tiny baby steps, and kind of experiment with it a little bit.
Sure. So the payoff is, I mean, it's priceless. There's really no words for it, because to be comfortable in your own skin most of the time, I'll say 90% of the time, opens doors that you don't even know are there to be opened in every aspect.
So what do you mean by that, with the doors?
So I think I've laughed more these past few years than I've ever laughed in my entire life. Because when you don't have all that clutter and that chatter going on in your head, it leaves room open to actually recognize joys and humor and beauty. Um, yeah, I think that's the key, is to be able to recognize these and have them in my life and understand and believe that I deserve these in my life, as everyone does. I think that's huge. Um, yeah, what more could you ask for? You know, I get these feelings of serenity and joy that come over me, and they're fleeting. You know, I wish they hung out all the time. That'd be super, but they're fleeting, but they're there and they're real. And I think it's the way I'm supposed to feel as a human, is that warmth and love and security and safety no matter what's going on around me.
Yeah, you know, what you're saying reminds me of something that Brene Brown said about when you numb the discomfort, you also numb the joy. When you're avoiding the discomfort, you're also avoiding the joy. So it's almost as if by facing and being real and allowing whatever it is to be, you open yourself up to these pockets of joy, these moments of joy, these different things that maybe you didn't even know were there because you were holding everything down so much, or trying to control so much, or just trying to not face it.
Exactly. That's perfect. That's a perfect. You numb everything when you choose numbness and denial. So yeah, then doors close, and I want doors open.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, and I think I got you off on a tangent. So, so we were talking about the woman who's wanting to go down this path, but who's reluctant.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
what would you have to say for her?
Well, my greatest tool was I formed a committee. I know this sounds a little crazy. I'm not crazy. Not that I know of. Some people might say I am.
I think you're going down the Napoleon Hill road.
Oh, what?
Because I think I've heard of Napoleon Hill, who wrote Think and Grow Rich. He interviewed thousands of very wealthy people, and he had a committee. But keep talking, and we'll see if it's the same thing.
Okay. Well, I have a committee of interchangeable, loving beings that only have my highest good in their concern. And I say interchangeable because I bring in my stepdaughter singing her I've Got a Bucket of Sunshine song. She's on my committee. You know, friends, trusted friends. If I have a guidance system, maybe angels that I like to think I have. It's this huge committee. And since I'm the CEO, I can hire and fire. So if I hear...
I love that.
If I hear someone that it doesn't resonate, sound like my best interest, you know, and I make sure my ego is out of the way and really look at that person, you know, they better go reevaluate why they're on my committee. But I do listen to that committee. I have committee meetings, and I'm on the committee, of course. So that's a great tool. And you know, you have to have a good imagination and kind of set things up. I picture a big table and people sitting around it, kind of like an executive meeting, because it's important, you know.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's so fun. You get to play with it. You can design the whole thing.
You can go crazy with it, and it's a great tool. I think support groups are a great tool, whether it be Al-Anon or just a group of friends that are, you know, like to walk on the high road all the time and really have your best interest at heart. Definitely, I think sharing experiences, strengths, and hopes via this kind of interview, networking, support groups, articles, national media would be nice. So yeah, I think you've got to have tools, though. Think of it. I think of a toolbox, and I think what tools used to be in there, what tools do I need to get rid of, and what tools do I need to replace in my toolbox, and your committee can help you with that.
That's great. Oh, that's so fun. That again just shows how you said you forgot to play, but it's obvious that that's in your life, alive and well and active. Sounds like all the time now for you.
It is. I lost myself,
Mm.
and it was a horrible journey. And now I have light and love and laughter. I look forward to things, traveling, grandchildren, doing things with my wonderful new husband, um, and serving others, seeing others grow and feel better. Just to feel better is a huge payoff.
Mm. Mm. So lovely. It feels it just feels so enlivening, and leads right into my next question, which is kind of what do you think we can actually? I look down here and I see that it was a different question that was my next question, but I'm going to go ahead and ask you this one anyway. So what do you think most excites you these days? Like, what do you think is on the horizon for you, kind of as your next growth edge, and what do you see for yourself coming up?
Well, here's another tool. I try to live one day at a time. I know that's an AA Al-Anon saying, but one day at a time, sometimes 1 minute at a time. When I do let myself glimpse into the future, I love my job. I see going places with that. I look forward, like I said earlier, to grandchildren. I am ready for them now. I don't think I would have been ready for them after my son died, but I'm feeling ready for grandchildren now. Just, I think, living in the light, in a lighter, happier mode, and learning not to beat myself up ever. Because I was a pro at that. So just living the rest of my life, not beating myself up is huge for me.
That take it easy approach.
Yeah, it's easy to be a victim. And a lot of us, it's comfortable there because we've done it for so long. A victim of whatever, circumstance or someone's abuse or someone's whatever. And when you step out of that victim role, there you got another spiritual awakening waiting for you when you refuse to be a victim. And I would suggest reading about it, Googling it, how not to be a victim. Emotional victim, or how not to be a victim of crime would be helpful too. But there's a lot of good websites that talk about how to step off that pity pot and let that victim go, and how not to play those same tapes over and over. I love the definition of insanity, which is keep doing the same thing but expect different results.
Yeah, it's like you're playing the same CD over and over again and expecting something different to show up on it.
Right.
Yeah. So I love this. I love how in all just wisdom that you're sharing, it's almost like we have this little toolbox that we're collecting little nuggets of information from what you're saying, and we're kind of, the person listening to this kind of walk away with a little starter toolbox to go down this road. And so I'm wondering like what you think, like collectively, like as women, we can do to make the shift easier for other women. Like, because what I'd like to do with this, with these interviews, is to hold that space. When I was in that victim state and I was playing that victim record over and over and over again, sure, I had lots of excuses. I had lots of reasons why I could claim, well, my husband left, and I'm the only support for my 3 little kids, and I have to work full time, and and it just, I could have a little list. And I can tell you that I would have given anything, and I did. I asked people, like I could look at some women, and they were single parents, but they weren't struggling like I was, and I kind of was asking, like, how do you do this? Oh, you'll make your way. I'm like, no, really, how do you do this? How are you doing that? You'll figure it out. And I'm just like, I need help figuring this out. And so I've spent 14 years figuring it out on my own. I don't want that to be 14 years for someone else. So what can we do collectively as a sisterhood to help ease this for other women?
Well, first, let me be very clear. I am afraid of everything. I'm a scaredy cat. I don't let that stop me.
Really?
I push on. But just know it's okay to be a scaredy cat and to try it anyway. Push yourself a little past that. Just so you know, I'm not this brave, I can handle anything type woman. No, I'm scared of everything. A bug, I scream. Dentist, I panic. So, but I think making a connection with something greater than yourself, whether you call that something God, higher power, the universe, stars, trees, whatever that is greater than yourself, I think it's important to get a connection with something like that so you're not left so lonely. And then self-care. Self-care, that's, a very simple word, but it's huge. Self-care is huge. Self-care reflects acceptance of a higher power's love. I think that's a very important sentence. When you're self-caring, you're showing your acceptance to a higher power's love. How can you go wrong there? And self-care might be as simple as if you weren't in the habit of brushing your teeth every night, make that a priority for 1 week. It can be something, so if you haven't read a book in a long time, read a book. Make sure you make your yearly checkups. Just anything that you would do for your own child. If you were your own child, self-care is that easy. And then others see that, and you can set a good example for others that are still struggling and suffering and don't even have a rope to grab onto. Speaking of ropes, that's another good tool. When you feel yourself tugging war with something or someone, my mantra is drop the rope. Drop the rope. Just drop it and visualize it. And that's another great tool for the box. And all these tools are free. That's what's really wonderful.
I know. And you know what? It's so amazing that you hold the key to your own toolbox. It's not that somebody else outside of you has this key and says, you can't access this good stuff, unless you go through me. It's within each of us. It's in
exactly.
Our own. And nobody can
you
do
can
it for
What? What'd you say?
Just nobody can do it for us. Oh, sorry. Nobody can do it for us. Like we are the only. It either happens because of us or it doesn't happen because of us. It's 100% personal responsibility.
Right. And at first it is scary because we're so used to this one path. And although it's not a pleasant path, we're just used to it. It has a comfort zone to it. But boy, when you just say, okay, just for today, I'm going to step outside my comfort zone. Just for today, if I find myself saying something negative about myself, like, oh, I'm so stupid, oh, I'm so lazy, I'm going to stop it. And I'm going to say, no, I'm not. I used to be, but I'm not now. So catching yourself doing those little negative things to your own self. If you think about it, you would never do that to your child. So big me has to take care of little me.
I heard two things that I wanted to mention. One was going back to courage. That I think it was Darren Hardy, who's the publisher of Success Magazine. He posted this recently on Facebook, and he said it only takes 20 seconds to move from a place of fear to you're past the fear and you're in whatever it is that you're doing. So if you can survive the 20 seconds, then you get to be on the other side. And so you just have to suffer that 20 seconds of discomfort before you gain some relief.
Yeah,
and
that sounds familiar.
The other thing I was going to mention was the gosh, I think it may have just slipped my mind when you were talking about actually, it just slipped my mind, but now I remember that you said the toolbox, and you were talking about decorating it, and I didn't hear what you said about that.
Well, you know, at first my toolbox was black, and in my little imaginary toolbox was just black, and I had some tools thrown in it, and it almost had a musty smell. But it was a start. And slowly I organized it and painted it. You can paint it any color every 5 minutes or once a month or never, or, you know, decorate little flowers, little jewels, whatever suits you, a yin and a yang on it, whatever feels good. And that's your go-to box. And then you have kind of a visual instead of just saying, oh yeah, I need my toolbox. I wonder what it is. Where is it? What does it look like? You just already have a visual, and it just makes it more fun and real. It helps make it more real.
That's great. That's fun. I can imagine having it different colors with different symbols, bejeweled.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with actually having a hammer in there. So you know you got to hammer something away. You can have a wrench because your attitude might need adjusting. Along with slogans like "Easy does it," "Keep it simple," "Live and let live." You know, you can make up your own. Anything you find in life that helps you. You know, take what you like and leave the rest, and put it in your toolbox. And if you find a tool's no longer helping you, you can throw it away.
Throw it away. That's awesome. So, well, I love that you agreed to have this conversation with me and with anybody else who's watching, and I found so much value in just your. It's like you're just you. You know, you've managed this art of being fully you and okay with that, and with your toolbox and your imagination and your board of directors, your committee, I love it, and I think it's so helpful. I know I've gleaned lots of nuggets of wisdom from talking with you, and I hope that other women have too, and be encouraged to that this can help make their journey a little bit easier, just knowing your story and seeing that you've lived through it.
Absolutely, Christy. That is 100% accurate. Others have got to fill their buckets and enjoy. It's deserving. It's a right.
So any last words that you'd have, parting words for them before they go off into the rest of their day or their evening?
Yeah, just focus on the things that you can change and try to let go of those as best you can that you can't change. I have one more little tool to wrap this up, and actually that's what you do. You wrap it up. If you have an issue or a person or a problem that you cannot change, you can't do anything about, I visualize wrapping it up in a pretty little pink bow and gently lifting it up to the universe and bidding it farewell. And then look at what I can change. What can I control and what can't I control? And having a realistic view of that is a huge step. And it's a daily, it's a daily reminder. Sometimes it's an hourly reminder. Oh yeah, I can't control that. Like my friend's death this morning. I couldn't control it. I could not do a thing about it. It was cancer. And I watched her suffer and held her hand as she moaned and laid in a kind of a drug coma. And the only thing I could do was talk gently to her, hum, and hold her hand. And although I'm very sad and I'll miss her like crazy, I'm not going to fall apart because it doesn't serve her family that needs support or me or her any good. And that's how strong you can become. It's possible.
Mm. Mm. You're such, God, you're such an amazing feminine example of strength and love and sensitivity and wisdom. Thank you so much, Pam.
You're welcome.
All right, I'm going to stop the broadcast